In this video, I want to show you my now favorite sequence of experiences in any video game ever. And of course, it was caused by Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is already my favorite game, and I've only played about 30 hours of it, and there are hundreds of more hours in the future. So I am currently playing my favorite game for the first time. It's the coolest thing. So I've been just super deep, not even recording my gameplay, just hyper focused on enjoying the game. And I had an insanely beautiful experience that I'm sure a lot of others of you have now experienced, and I wanted to share it. I actually told the story through a series of Snapchat recordings to my friend last night, narrating my entire experience without any visuals, and he said, that was super fun to listen to. You should make it into a YouTube video. So what I've done is I have gone back and tried to, in my game file, basically recreate what happened to me to give you some visuals. And then the places where I couldn't, like cutscenes and things, I went to YouTube and I borrowed from various YouTubers some of the visuals from the game to kind of fill in the gaps. So this is sort of a mishmash reconstruction of the experience that I had last night that is now probably my favorite sequence in gaming ever, like I said. Obvious spoiler warning, this sequence is probably intended to be pretty late game, even though I would definitely say that I'm just in mid-game right now. I got a little further than I even intended to because of how well the game is structured. So spoilers for, potentially everything. So I would suggest that you definitely spend some time. I mean, the main sequence here has to do with things that end up happening in the Great Hyrule Forest, the Lost Woods, and beyond. So definitely at least have played those major sections before you watch this video. And I hope you enjoy. Okay, so quick synopsis of my Master Sword Quest story. So I was just curious what was going on in the Lost Woods because it was one of my favorite locations in the last game. So I walk up from the Hyrule Castle path to the normal entrance where you were able to get in the first game, because obviously it's still there. And I asked you about silent shrooms because there were several in the immediate path as I walked towards the Lost Woods. So I get to a point where I void out and I get lost and I get reloaded back at an archway. And I'm like, okay, this archway is obviously the way to at least start going forward, just like it was the first one. So I just saw several silent shrooms. Maybe it has something to do with silent shrooms. So I proceed to spend probably a full 10 minutes, like throwing silent shrooms and trying to run up to them, surrounding myself in silent shrooms, carrying silent shrooms with me, and I keep voiding out. So I'm like, okay, this is not working. So then I'm like, okay, well, there's other game mechanics here. So then I start playing around with Ultra Hand and Recall along with the silent shrooms, can't figure it out. And obviously, because I'm in absolutely the wrong place, I'm reading into hints that aren't there. So obviously I get extremely stumped super quickly, and that's when I messaged you and I was like, what am I doing wrong? What is going on? And you're like, engage with the game mechanics, you stupid idiot. And I was like, I'm using all the game mechanics. So then I was thinking about it a lot, and I was like, wait, there's more than just the new abilities. There are other game mechanics that aren't abilities, like flying. So then I was like, okay, well, I probably have to dive into the forest then. And to be fair, that was not a bad option. I can totally see them deciding to do it that way. Just like putting a hole in the center that's difficult to get to unless you're coming from a super high place. So I try to figure out how to get above it. I don't want to go all the way to Eldin because, first of all, that's way too far away. I'm not even sure I could get a flying machine to get all the way back down from Eldin all the way to the forest. But also, there's obviously going to be some islands above me in a tower. So I end up kind of starting at Hebra from a shrine that I had nearby and looping all the way around north Then I end up at Typhlo Ruins, and I do like a ton of Typhlo Ruins stuff. I mean, I say a ton. I mean, I show up and I do the tower quest, and I talk to the geologist there. I didn't actually do anything with the geologist. I just talked to him, so I know that there's a quest that I need to go back there for. But I got the Typhlo Ruins tower, and looked around, and then I ended up in the sky, and then I just got distracted and did a bunch of sky stuff. But then I had a shrine almost directly above the Lost Woods, finally. So I'm like, okay, I'm so excited. And for the first time, I finally looked down. I seriously took probably 2 hours doing this super long side quest and series of things to eventually be able to dive down into the forest without ever checking if there was a break in the black clouds to see if I could actually dive in. And there was not. It was all just black. So I'm on a sky island directly above the Lost Woods, and it's just all black, and there's nowhere I'm supposed to dive to. And I'm feeling a little sad about that, but I'm like, no, maybe it just works. So I proceed to do about 5 different skydives where I try different methods to get into the Lost Woods. And once again, don't really engage with what would be obvious mechanics or hints. I just beat my head against, well, in this case, I beat my head against the mist of the Lost Woods. So I tried speed gliding, I tried slowly gliding, I tried paragliding, I tried going dead center of the Lost Woods, I tried dropping down onto the shrines, because I don't know if you've noticed, but you can see a couple of the shrines actually through the fog from the top. Obviously, none of them work. I void out not only before I hit the ground, but even before I can really see the ground, and I get lost in the air just as much as you get lost on the ground, and then it would keep respawning me back at the sky island where I had come from. So I was like, okay, well, this isn't going to work. So I start looking at the map, and I start looking around, and I'm like, okay, Jacob said engage with the game mechanics, which just is such an obvious statement, but also, honestly, was a really good hint, because it kept sending me in the right direction so that I stopped, running, beating my head against the wall so much. So I'm like, okay, Jacob said to use the game mechanics, and I'm looking around the map, and I'm like, wait, I'm seeing some chasms. There's 3 chasms, all suspiciously near, surrounding on 3 sides of the forest. And I'm like, okay, there's not that many chasms in this game entirely, and for there to be that many so near to this one distinct place, that's gotta mean something. So I finally was running out of options, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is my option then. I guess engage with the game mechanics. So I ended up going down the chasm to the southeast near that original entrance where I was trying to get in. Went all the way down, and then obviously, you've seen it, there's the kind of really interesting, cool segment of the depths underneath the Lost Woods. Okay, let me preface this by saying I had seen the spooky gloom arms once, very briefly in my gameplay, and once more, even more briefly, in a YouTuber's gameplay. I didn't want the spoilers, so I cut away super fast from the YouTuber, and I was so scared of them that I immediately used, when I was playing and saw them, that I used a rocket shield, flew up and away, and disappeared. So I have no idea what they do, and at this point it's been almost a week since I've played, so I completely forgot that they existed, okay? That's the setup. So I go down into the chasm, and I land in the depths, and it's darker than I remember it being, and I haven't been in the depths. Like I said, I haven't played this game very much all week, and I've only been doing sky islands and surface, so I forgot how creepy the depths were, and it kind of got to me a little bit, and seemed like it was darker. And I remember zooming in with my scope and seeing a ton of different light routes. I'm now assuming that every single shrine in the Lost Woods is connected to a light route. Because it seems like there's more light roots, more dense in that area below the Lost Woods than normal. So anyway, I'm like, well, there's a ton of gloom in this area, and I obviously need to get at least one of these light roots. So I build a car, one of my first times building a car in the depths and actually using it consistently, and I drive over all of the gloom. And I'm starting to get concerned because, quite frankly, I built a very terrible car. I took a big slab of rock, and then I put wheels on the wide end, not the long end. So my car is like 10 feet wide and can't get in between any of the trees because I didn't realize that I needed to build a flexible, usable car. Dude, look, I know it probably wasn't this big of a deal for you, but I'm going to dramatize it. Well, I'm not going to exaggerate it. I'm going to tell you exactly what I felt, but I'm going to give you the detail because the dramatization is really funny because it felt very dramatic. I was scared. Like, I was really on edge because I wasn't used to the depths, and I'm not, like, it's still so new to me that Zelda has this kind of, this game, overall, the surface isn't as dark, but it has more dark elements, which is fun. So I was pretty much out of light buds. That's the first thing that you need to know. I'm down in the depths, and I'm so determined to try to find the Master Sword that I decide that I'm going to kind of do it. And I only have like 3 light buds left. So I put on my glow gear, and it's still not full glow. So I'm only at 2 of like the 3 glow that I could have had. And I wasn't using my light buds because I didn't have any. So it's dark. And I run, and just a couple of steps in front of me, all of a sudden one of those trees with the gaping mouths comes up, and I couldn't tell the texture, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I thought it was a new enemy at first until I realized that it was just one of the old forest trees, but in the depths. I did not expect them to do that. So that freaked me out. And then that's when I finally built my car that couldn't get through all of the trees. So I'm on edge. They keep making new enemies. I don't know what's going to happen. I start driving my car. And you need to understand, I ran into trees immediately that my car couldn't pass. So I was stuck. So I had to get off of my car and find a patch in between the gloom that wouldn't kill me and use Ultra Hand to move my car. So I know that my car is not very flexible. I know that my car won't work very well. And I am on the edge of my seat. And then I get past this rim of trees, and the gloom starts bubbling. And the music turns creepier, and I swear to God, the lighting got darker, and the hands come up. And remember, I didn't remember that the hands existed, and my heart jumped in my throat, and I freaked out. I was so goddamn scared. It was almost for just a moment because I didn't because I haven't seen what these things do. I don't know how they hurt you. I don't know how they kill you. I don't know what to expect from them. I don't know if it's an instant game over. I don't know if there's something creepier that they do. I don't know if I'm going to lose armor or something. And they just caught me by surprise. It was almost as bad as fighting enemies and being in the depths of the spaceship on, whatever that damn game's called that I'm in, Dead Space. So I just book it. I push forward, and I try to get that super, super slow, stupid-ass car to move as fast as it possibly can. And I'm scared to death, and I'm praying to God that I don't run into a tree because I don't have any more light buds. So I can't see where I'm going, and I have hardly any glow. Oh, this is way more in detail than I meant to tell you, but I think that it's hilarious, and it was so much more dramatic than it needed to be. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that intense of a story. It was a little dark, and there was some glowy hands. Not that big of a deal, but I flipped. So that was really fun. It was really, really, really spooky. It was really fun. I loved it. And so then I got a light root or 2 in the area, and then I found that centerpiece where they have that like overhang that lets you use Ascend to go all the way up to the woods. And I thought that was so special. That was one of the cool moments in the game where I was like, well, the game set up some rules. And I thought that we had certain rules, and now it's using its rules to break its own rules. Right? Because up until this point, I had never seen a way that you could go from the depths to the surface. So like Ascend always takes you up, but Ascend really mostly only works on the surface and the Sky Islands. And there's a few smaller places, like some ruins in the depths that you can use them on in small areas. I didn't expect to be able to go from the depths to the surface. I didn't realize that not only could we go from the surface to the depths, but there's specific places where we can go from the depths to the surface using Ascend. It was just a really, really cool, really well-developed feature, I think. Because, yeah, that's absolutely logical. Why couldn't you? I just hadn't seen it happen before, and so I thought that there was a rule that we couldn't, you know? Like, just in our... I don't know. The game developers are cool, and that, like, it got me excited. So then I pop up out of the ground in the middle of poisoned Korok Forest. And the ambiance and the haunted look and the haunted music and like the poison spewing out of the Deku tree's mouth and the Koroks just frozen, unmoving, unable to talk to you. Holy shit, it was so good. It was so sinister. Like, I think what's cool, why I'm going into depth about this and why I'm dramatizing it is because, number one, it's funny, but number two, I think it did so well at taking me through a journey of emotions, even more than Breath of the Wild ever did. Like, how special to decide I want to go to a place and then try to go there and then see the game expand on its own rules over and over and over again and create emotional impacts related to things that I care about. Because I didn't realize how much I liked the Korok Forest, and as much as I hate the Koroks, how much I like the Koroks. And to see, like, the Korok Forest in that state really kind of drives home the impact that all the events were actually happening. You know, like if you get really nerdy about like the lore and the story, right? But I think that's so cool. It was so emotional. Like, it was great. I was very emotionally engaged. So then you fall down the Deku Tree chasm pit and you land at the bottom, and I mean. I just described to you that I was so terrified of these arms when I was down in the depths that I freaked out and ran away until they finally disappeared. I have never fought them. I have no idea how to fight them. And still, after doing it, I don't know their weaknesses. I don't know how to engage with them very well. But I'm down in a pit, and I've decided that I'm here, and I have to fight now, I guess. All of a sudden, it freaked me the hell out. I panicked quite a bit. I played more poorly than I've ever played, but I had an exorbitant amount of food and gloom restoration food, luckily. So I'm freaking out. I'm swearing. I'm freaking out. I'm running. I'm getting grabbed by the arms. I'm jumping away. I'm eating food, I'm fighting, I'm eating food, I'm blowing them up, I'm blowing myself up, I'm eating food, just absolutely freaking out. And I was on my last heart. I had more food, but I had almost died. I was on my very last heart, and I killed the last arm, and I let out the most loud, relieved sigh that I maybe ever have in gaming, because those arms just really get to me. They really ick me. And so I was so relieved. I was so calm and excited for the fact that the arms were gone. And then fucking Phantom Ganon shows up. Phantom Ganondorf, who I have not seen, who I have not interacted with at all. At this point, I only had like 2 tiers, so I had seen like one cutscene of him other than the intro. So I know nothing. I know nothing about him. I did not I still had my doubts as to whether or not Ganondorf in humanoid form would be a boss that we would fight at all. And then here I am fighting some gloom version of Phantom Ganondorf, not knowing how difficult he is, not knowing how much of a fight this is going to be, not knowing if this is supposed to be like endgame. It probably is. And I'm supposed to have already fought his previous version. I just decide I'm here. I'm going for it now. So it was the same thing. I performed even more poorly. I ate so much food, got hit so many times. And what's funny is by the end, I had kind of figured out his moveset and I realized he's really not actually very difficult. He's not actually very difficult of an enemy at all. In fact, I would say, other than the fact that there's a lot of gloom on the ground, Phantom Ganondorf is easier than some of the surface mini bosses. I mean, definitely some of them, right? Like Talus's, but even like some of the regular bosses. I don't know. He was like some of the regular enemy. I don't know. It wasn't that hard, but it was the ambiance. It was the music. It was the gloom being a factor. It was the fact that I didn't know his moveset. It's the fact that he caught me so fucking off guard because I had no idea that was going to happen and I just had to react. Dude, so good. I'm just saying that this game is so well designed. This has turned into like a 10-minute long rant, or maybe longer. I'm not even keeping track anymore. I'm sorry. Maybe you can just listen to this in the background while you're playing. I'll keep the rest of the story briefer because the rest of it isn't quite as crazy. But healed the Deku Tree. That was really cool. And then the Deku Tree is like, oh, look, I sense the Master Sword. And by the way, it's moving? What? So I assumed that the Master Sword was going to be locked away deep inside of Gerudo. Inside of like Elden Mountain, inside of Death Mountain. So I was curious to kind of see what was going on with the Master Sword, if it was in the sky or if it was in the depths. So I kind of wanted to just suss it out. I was starting to think that maybe the intended route is go wherever you want, primarily, right? But they do have a little bit of a design of, I think, what they expect the most popular route to be, right? And I was starting to have my suspicions that the most popular route was going to be something like Rito, then Gerudo, then Zora, then Gorons, right? For me, I did Rito and then Zora, and then I was thinking with the developers, kind of seemed like they wanted me to go to Gerudo next and then do the Gorons last. So I'm sitting here thinking Gorons and Death Mountain is probably more endgame than anything else. I mean, Breath of the Wild didn't really have that much of endgame other than Hyrule Castle, and I understand that, but maybe that's kind of more the idea. But I have reason to believe that I'm not going to be able to see the source of the Master Sword. I'm not going to be able to see what's going on. It's going to be locked away something. So that's why I go. If I had known what it was, maybe I would have waited. But even then, I don't know if I really would have. I don't know if I care because what happened next was just so good. Incredible. Just beautiful, beautiful cinematics. So I fly up to one of the Sky Islands, or I fast travel to one of the Sky Islands in Akala and just kind of look around. And I think I got distracted with something. And then all of a sudden, the mission marker for the Master Sword was like right next to me. And I was like, what the fuck? So I turn around and look over the ledge of the Sky Island. And there is this absolutely gorgeously designed dragon that I have never seen before, right below me, with massive golden and blue tails of light coming off of it. And I mean, at that point, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? Even if it seems like, oh, maybe this is endgame and maybe I shouldn't touch, it's right there. It's right there. Like, I could paraglide to it, and it's not even difficult, and it is the most gorgeous thing that I've seen in this video game, which is my favorite video game, which is based on my other favorite video game. So, of course, having seen no tears, not knowing what I'm getting into, I go stand on the Dragon of Light and pull the Master Sword. What a fucking cool experience. The visuals are so gorgeous. The music is inspiring. The pacing of the cinematics are really good too, like from an editing perspective, but the visuals, oh, it was so good. The whole that whole story, the highs and the lows, the pounding my head against the wall. I'm gonna start that over. The highs and the lows of the whole story. This is why I think this might be. Okay, so first of all, Breath of the Wild was my favorite video game. I think Tears of the Kingdom is probably taking that seat, only because it's Breath of the Wild, but even better. But I think that this now might be my favorite gaming sequential experience of all time, because it's in my favorite game that is based on my last favorite game, and it had such an amazing series of highs and lows and experience. I hit my head against a wall looking at puzzles that weren't even there, and then saw how the developers set up expectations for different systems in the game, and then combined those systems to break my expectations. Then they dealt damage to something that they made me care about in the previous game, and surprised me multiple times in a row by throwing things at me that I did not expect to even exist, let alone to have to fight in that state. And ending it on such an incredibly glorious note with the dragon and getting the Master Sword. It was so fucking awesome.